this is a first. Open circle online, never been done. It's the first time we've not met as a physical group socially for almost 9 years, so that's quite something. But do you know what, as long as we've got this kind of technology, then we should be thankful that we can get together as some sort of connecting community, if you like. And of course we're experiencing the global pandemic, which is a first for me. I don't know about you, but it is for me. You see me at the moment, I'm doing working on past life work, so I'm working on some readings at the minute. I'm just going to wash out my brush. And because I work with a lot of past life situations, and because I write and teach the effects of reincarnation, this situation has got me thinking quite a lot about people's reactions. So obviously at the moment lots of people are going to be feeling very anxious during these times. Not just worried, that's a given, everyone's worried, but I mean suffering with extreme anxiety, such as really experiencing really unexpected reactions that may shock their friends, reactions that may shock their family, reactions that may even shock themselves actually, unexplained reactions that come from nowhere. And I wanted to look at these reactions, our reactions to events, not particularly this global reaction, not particularly that, but all reaction. And I want to examine it from a different direction, from my direction, from my perspective as a past life therapist. So from this perspective of reincarnation. But to do that, first we need to look briefly at how and why we react to any given situation in the first place. This is largely dependent on our current environment and our past experiences. Our current environment being what happens around us in our everyday life, and our past experience being the experience we've had with that situation previously, if any, because we may not have done. So let's just think about that for a minute and let's give a couple of examples, so bear with me. So if we for example think of a street and we've got Bill and we've got Bob living in the same street. Bill owns his own house, he's got a good job, he's got a nice car on the drive, he's got a healthy family, all his family are healthy, he's really lucky. Kids are doing well at school, wife's got a good job as well. Bill has a pretty trouble-free life right now. Bill orders a package online for next day delivery. It doesn't arrive. Bill thinks, that's a bit odd. Tell you what, I'll drop him an email, see what's happened, see where it is. Bob lives in the same street. Bob lives across the road in a rented flat. Bob's going through a divorce at the minute. He works 2 jobs to support his own household and give money back to his kids as well. His mother's sick, his dad passed away not so long ago. his marriage broke down because he lost his rather good job that he got and ended up with, you know, it was just too much strain. So his marriage broke down. Couldn't afford his house. And to add to it, Bob's kids are all being bullied at school as well. So Bob's got a real pretty tough time right now. Bob orders the same package online for the next day delivery. But when Bob's package doesn't arrive, his reaction to that situation is likely to be very different to Bill's, and it's likely to be a very different email to Bill's. Likewise, if we go back to happy-go-lucky Bill, and let's say that every parcel that he has ever ordered from that particular company is either late or it doesn't turn up, so his past experience with that company is pretty rubbish. Even though Bill is happy-go-lucky, because of his experience, he's likely... Yeah, Minnie. Sorry. He's likely to give a very different email, a very different reaction to that package not turning up. Yeah? So, our reaction to any given... I mean, that's a really simple thing, a really simple example. Sorry about the dog. But we can put that model into every reaction, so we can actually look at Minnie, shh, 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 Minnie, shh, you're on film. All right, shush, shh. Minnie, sit, Minnie, sit. So, any given reaction to any situation is typically dependent on our current environment, what's going on in our lives at that one time, and also our experiences with that particular situation. But where I'm going with this is, what we tend not to consider is that our reactions are also very dependent on experiences from past lives. So past life traumas that have transcended the journey of the soul and are reactivated due to present day trigger points. These traumas can remain dormant through time, hidden within the subconscious, but with the slightest trigger that relates to an experience from the past, from a past existence, these traumatic reactions can be reactivated, creating what could often be seen as an extreme overreaction to a situation, creating what appears to the outsider to be irrational fear. Indeed, many phobias can and do stem from or can be attributed to past life trauma. Now, many people ask, when I'm teaching, many people ask why the soul would not be fully healed, relieved of all its trauma during its transition through the karmic belt. Let's go back a bit. The karmic belt being the energetic healing field that the soul accesses between lives. But what we need to remember about this is the everlasting soul is designed to grow through the experiences of reincarnation, having the constant ability to grow and evolve during our interaction with the world around us, with humanity, with everything. That is how the soul grows. To wipe the slate clean during the time period in the karmic belt, as it were, if you think of it as wiping the slate clean, wiping away all trauma, it wouldn't assist the soul in any form of growth whatsoever. So whilst some things would be healed, certain things need to evolve with the soul. Also, some traumas may be repeated through consecutive lives. So for example, good example of this is either death or crisis, some sort of crisis during childbirth. These repeated traumas, they can be through one life, the next life, the next life. They might skip a life, they might be in another life. So these repeated traumas then can create what we term a soul scar, which becomes more difficult to heal. When the soul then embodies a new existence, comes back for another life, these points of trauma or these scars may remain with the soul well hidden until there is an event in this life that triggers a reaction. What we then see is often an involuntary overreaction that is often, well, at best it's ridiculed, like a phobia. Oh, I'm scared of spiders. And someone who's absolutely terrified, you know, it's ridiculed. At worst, it's attacked. But it's almost always misunderstood. Lots of people recently, especially on social media, have commented that society as a whole, I generally find social media really judgmental, and I think people, you know, should actually chill for a bit before. It's like they're behind. I'm going off on one now, but they're behind a screen, so they can throw as many stones as they like. Well, you know, calm down. But lots of people have commented recently that I've been picking up on, that society can't seem to cope with crisis the way that our predecessors have done in the past. For example, there's lots of people talking about the flu pandemic of the early 1900s, 1917s-ish sort of time period. Went on for quite a few years. Awful period. But as a past life therapist, what we should be looking at, what I'm looking at in that situation, is why this may be the case. Why? Not just dismissing it as we can't cope because of our predecessors were. We need to look at why. We need to analyse that. These present day reactions, however they may manifest, may be triggers to trauma sustained during these periods of time. For example, someone who is unaware of previous life during the 1915 to 1920s, that sort of period, they may be unaware of it completely. During that life, they may have lost many loved ones to that particular disease. They might have suffered tremendous fear, tremendous heartache, and they may now display sudden and acute paranoia and intense anxiety, resulting in what may appear to others to be very selfish and quite extreme actions of self-preservation. Basically, that's what's kicking in. Now, before everyone starts typing, I'm not justifying these actions, nor condoning these actions, but we're offering an examination of the actions. That's what we're doing. As part of my work, that's what I'm doing. Our current environment is going to see an unprecedented rise in anxiety levels, and we could see various trigger points coming into play here. Anyone who's had a previous life during the time of the bubonic plague, Black Death, or any serious infection. Anyone who's suffered death, loss of loved ones, etc., through disease or even through famine as well, periods of famine. All these people are likely to react in very different way to those who have not suffered past existences during that sort of thing. Indeed, they are very likely to be in complete meltdown by now, I would imagine. Just as someone who has suffered death and destruction through war would react very differently to a violent situation. If my voice will hold out, and I do hope you can hear me, my trigger point and my own anxiety levels stem from a different source entirely, and yet our current global situation is still my trigger point. It's still very much now, and I'll tell you why. Because my trigger point is confinement, so restriction of movement, enforced restriction. I need to know that I can escape. I need to know, it's very serious, I need to know that I can move. I need to know that I can flee. However you want to describe it. I can't even sit on the middle aisle of a plane. I have to sit by the window, like I'm going to get out the window, but somehow it puts me in control. I need to sit in the theatre or at the cinema. I have to sit on the end of an aisle so that I know I can get out. And this is largely subconscious. I can't say that it affects my life that much. However, when we get to periods of time, like at the moment when we're restricted movement in our own home, that has pretty much sent me, I've had to control my anxiety a lot, which is why we develop so many techniques to help people with anxiety, because I've had to deal with that. And even though, you know, we're safe in our own home, it's keeping us healthy, but still it trips off my anxiety. That is my trigger point. It's still there. This stems from my past life during Civil War, England's Civil War, English Civil War. Being hunted for various reasons, never remaining in one place, being on the run, always needing to be on the move, if you like. So anyone suffering a similar anxiety triggered from the enforced confinement that we're feeling at the minute can assume that it's likely that they have at some point been hunted or incarcerated, there's another one, in a previous life. Understanding why we may see or feel these extreme reactions helps us not only to live with the reaction, with the anxiety, but to heal as well, to manage the consequences of these reactions. And in some cases it actually alleviates the trauma itself. In some cases knowing it is enough. If we can do this, we're then so doing exactly what the soul is meant to do, which is growing beyond the point of past trauma. That's where we're supposed to be, growing beyond that point of past trauma. So acknowledging it and letting it drift back in time to its origin. That's it. We know it. We can let it go. Using the trauma in a helpful way, rather than allowing it to become destructive. Often when we examine this extreme anxiety, It's often been affecting our lives, our current lives, in one way or another for a very long time without us even realising it. Sometimes underlying fear it's holding us back. Sometimes it's us not actually being able to accept situations. Sometimes it's us not being able to move on or to commit to something, or to see the positive slant in something. So these traumas can affect us in many ways that are largely hidden from ourselves. Sometimes these triggers can create the opposite. So what do we mean by that? Sometimes there is an unmeasurable strength that can be derived from these hidden traumas. Not just fear and anxiety, but a rising of power that comes directly from incarnations of suffering. A heroic strength that jumps into action, and it can save lives, prevent further suffering. It's like it's ignited. This too can be embraced and built upon, especially if we understand where it's coming from, and can sometimes be the discovery from adversity of the true soul purpose in this life. Maybe something that a person has been searching for a really long time, and yet this point, this trigger point to trauma in adversity may actually reveal what someone's supposed to be doing, and it's eluded them for all their life, but this trigger point actually brings it back, or reveals it, you could say. What is also possible is to tap into the collective fear of a time period in the past that then feeds the fear of the present. This tends to happen as a collective and en masse, driving the anxiety without rational thought, soon becoming hysteria that spans centuries without us even realising, and this serves no purpose whatsoever. What we need to remember is to be present in the now. We know this, but sometimes we need to be present in this existence, to be grounded in this existence, and to use any method that works to control the anxiety that spirals out of control. So self-exploration, self-development, and there's really no excuse right now, is there? Because you're sat at home doing nothing, unless you're a frontliner, which, you know, then you've got every excuse. It's self-exploration, self-development is the most useful way to understand the soul self and the journeys that have created undoubted traumas, because everyone's got traumas, and they've undoubtedly created these traumas throughout time, throughout, you know, so many incarnations. What can those traumas and experiences teach us now in this life, in this situation even? What can they teach us? If we can examine and understand the journey of the soul, our experiences through hundreds of lives over thousands of years, then we can truly come together to be a stronger, unified force that is part of this world, this universe. Our time here on Earth is it's literally moments, so we should make every effort to understand the universal plan and the part that we actually play in that plan. Everyone's here for a reason. We're all here this time for a reason, like we were here last time for a reason. Everyone's got a part to play Do you know what your part is that you're supposed to be playing? Anyone who knows us at Ravenwood will know that we're passionate about past life study and exploring the effects of our current existence and how they relate, how they interact. We have many forms of assisted exploration, you could call it, including meditations and, of course, other past life therapies as well. What you see me working on right now, as I mentioned at the start, is past life reading. Actually, you probably can't see it very well at all, but I'm just going to show it. We've just got the sketch that's coming along there, which is why this is recorded, because I need light. So we've got a past life reading there. She will be a full oil painting at the end of this when I've finished. I'm actually really low on my equipment because my equipment is up at my other studio, which is up the road, and of course we're here and we're not allowed out, so therefore I'm using Scratty brush number 1 and Scratty brush number 2, but that's okay, I can do it, you know, Scratty pencil. But anyway, this rather fantastic young lady. So a reading acts as an access tool to reveal lives that are relevant to our existence right now. Once the client has the reading, they can explore their lives at their own pace, being able to dip in and out of their self-development without creating a traumatic experience, which is often the case in regression, when we can sometimes get a traumatic experience in regression that's also not relevant to our current life, which is worst case scenario. So exploring the past selves can reveal and heal these traumas and can create great strength and empowerment when we realise what we've actually endured, things that we've actually lived through, can create this empowerment as well as heal these traumas. For anyone who's not convinced on the theory of reincarnation, then I'd be happy to enlighten the subject in great depth if you'd like to pre-order my forthcoming book that will be released on July the 4th. I'm sure you'll find my extensive studies really convincing. For anyone who'd like to train as a past life therapist, for anyone who feels like they're really drawn to the subject and they want to know more, we're going to be running new classes once all this is over, of course, and everyone's okay. We're going to be running new classes again. We've just run one for 6 months where we've had a fabulous 2 groups training to be therapists. Once they've completed their graduation exams, then we'll be running another 6-month course as well. Unlike the schools, they don't get let off from their exams. So I'm going to carry on with this now. As you see, she's going to start to come along, and just after I've finished, what we're going to do is we're going to go to live on Facebook, and myself and Johnny are going to do some questions and answers. Thank you. And I'll just carry on. Starting to lose the light a little.